Collaboration in special education. Since the enactment of IDEA, many general and special education teachers have collaborated on ways to include students with disabilities within a general education setting. The overall goal of special education is to provide individual instruction to students that address their needs in the least restrictive environment to the maximum extent possible. However, increasing percentages of students with high incidence disabilities continue to receive instruction and related services in more restrictive or separate settings. Many educators have supported the concept that students with disabilities benefit more from receiving instruction in general education settings, whereas other educators support the concept that general education teachers benefit less due to less emphasis on instruction and more emphasis on constant collaboration with special education teachers to address these students' needs. This separation from more inclusive settings reduces opportunities for students with disabilities, equal access to the general curriculum, and possible higher academic expectations. As the years have progressed, more emphasis has shifted teachers promoting full inclusion of students with disabilities in general education classrooms to promote academic achievement and to prepare them to interact effectively with their peers. The overall goal of inclusive settings is to promote the academic success of students with disabilities by addressing their needs in the least restrictive environment to the maximum extent possible. Inclusion that is structured based on effective collaboration and academic planning between general and special education teachers, along with established academic and behavioral expectations, can be beneficial to both general and special education students. For inclusion to be successful, educators must willingly agree to collaborate with one another, accept one another's ideas, and share resources that would provide access to the general curriculum for all students. Inclusion of both special education students and special education teachers in a general education setting would enable instruction to be more powerful and effective. Students with disabilities will have more access to the general curriculum, and general education teachers will become more knowledgeable of individualized instruction planning. By promoting collaboration between general education and special education teachers, as well as placing students with disabilities in more inclusive settings, teachers would be less reliant on traditional instructional strategies, and all students would strengthen their knowledge of the information by engaging in collaborative group activities. The success of inclusive practices within the general education setting is determined by the effort between general and special education teachers to collaborate with one another for the sole benefit of serving and meeting the needs of all students in the least restrictive environment. Cooperative teaching or co-teaching represents the relationship between the general education teacher and the special education teacher working together to deliver instruction to all students in the general education classroom. With co-teaching, the professional should have appropriate credentials. For example, co-teaching can be carried out by two teachers, general education teacher and a special education teacher. Teachers and related service personnel. So co-teaching can also include teachers and related service personnel such as speech language pathologists, or co-teaching can comprise of a teacher and another specialist such as a literacy coach. The text covers 6 approaches to co-teaching. 1 teach, 1 observe. In this co-teaching approach, one educator has the responsibility for designing and delivering instruction to the entire group. The second educator observes, collects data related to a small group or an individual student to find out the problems that need to be addressed to promote student engagement and learning. Little joint planning is required, but the approach provides both educators the opportunity to better understand the class environment, the needs of the students, management styles, and to analyze specific concerns on specific students. Co-teachers should jointly decide who should be observed and for what purpose before class instruction begins. For this approach to be successful, professionals should rotate responsibilities regularly. Otherwise, one of the co-teachers, most often the special education teacher, will be assigned to the role of assistant or observer. Co-teacher is unsuccessful when one professional dominates or leads in a direction that the other professional does not embrace. Then there is parallel teaching. With parallel teaching, the co-teachers jointly plan the curriculum and instruction. Then each teacher may split a group of students in half and simultaneously deliver the same instruction to both groups. Both teachers are required to coordinate strategies so that all students receive essentially the same instruction. Parallel teaching is often appropriate for drill and practice activities, test reviews, topic discussions, and projects needing teacher supervision. Teachers participating in parallel teaching must make sure that both teachers are familiar with the subject content and feels comfortable teaching that subject. If a teacher is not qualified to teach a certain subject or certain subject material, parallel teaching should not be used for initial instruction. Then there is station teaching. Station teaching involves the active participation of both educators. The instructional content is divided between the co-teachers, and each is responsible for planning and teaching a portion of the lesson. This approach requires more planning and shared responsibility, but it is advantageous for teachers who are less familiar with each other and have different teaching styles. Two major concerns for station teaching are the noise and movement in the class. Some students and teachers may not be able to tolerate two teachers talking, and transitions to other stations may be disruptive for some students. Also, course activities that need to be presented in a certain order would not work in station teaching. Then there is alternative teaching. In this approach, one educator instructs most of the students while the other educator works with a smaller group of students to reteach, pre-teach, or provide supplementary instruction being taught to most of the class. Alternative teaching is a strategy that provides intense instruction within a general classroom and allows all students more interaction with the teacher in a small group. The risk of this co-teaching approach is that students with disabilities may be stigmatized by having to receive instruction repeatedly in a small group where reteaching of content typically occurs. One strategy addressing this problem is to allow students who need additional instruction to participate in remediation groups voluntarily. Another co-teaching approach is teaming. Teaming requires both educators to share instruction to all students at the same time. Both teachers are responsible for planning, They monitor students' work independently and facilitate groups of students working on shared projects. Teaming can be a successful approach if the co-teachers have a strong level of mutual trust and commitment. Co-teachers participating in teaming often have effective instruction conversations with each other and with students. They can incorporate diverse teaching styles and often encourages student participation in academic improvement. Another co-teaching approach is one teach, one assist. In this approach, one teacher assumes the primary role for implementing instruction and managing the classroom activities, while the other teacher assists students with questions about assignments and redirection of student behaviors. Limited shared planning is necessary for this approach. Although this co-teaching approach may invoke negative feelings of competency, this can be avoided if both teachers have equal opportunities to assume both roles. Both have an opportunity to take the lead of instruction and the role for assisting. All co-teaching approaches require levels of trust and commitment. The concept of co-teaching may be unnerving for any teacher because of the focus on teaching styles to accommodate students and have an extra adult in the class. As relationships between co-teachers mature, a variety of co-teaching approaches can be used to meet the needs of diverse students in the general education classroom. However, co-teaching involves overcoming many obstacles such as planning, communication, time, roles, feelings of parity, trust, and administrative support. When done correctly, co-teaching approaches provide teachers with more confidence about working with students with diverse learning needs and allows teachers to see their co-workers in new ways while establishing positive relationships. So Chapter 4 presents the importance of collaboration and communication to promote success in working with students with diverse needs. It is imperative that general educators, special educators, and other professionals work collaboratively to establish common goals for all students' academic success as well as behavioral success. So to apply what you learned in Chapter 4, reflect on the following questions. What are the key elements needed for successful collaboration between educators and other professionals who work with students with disabilities? What are examples of how to increase family participation in their child's education in the areas of their child's learning at home and or within the community? How would you describe the role or roles of paraeducators in the classroom? And is it appropriate for teachers to have a collaborative relationship with paraeducators? Why or why not? There is no expectation to submit your responses to these questions as a written assignment. However, it is an opportunity for you to reflect on the content presented in Chapter 4.